And that's becoming multiplied in the life of another person. And as that happens, it grows the ability to invest and build up others as Christ followers. So, you're discipling the person who leads prayer here. You're discipling other people by going after that. And so who are the folks that you're... I guess the thing with discipleship, there is an intentionality about investing in that person and seeing what you've received spiritually from the Lord take place in the life of another person. Now, the body has all sorts of different expressions. And so it's this working together of those that encourages a balanced growth among all of us. So, those are questions that really desire for you to answer in a heartfelt way. Probably right now is not the time to really meditate and listen to the Spirit fully about those. But they're pretty simple questions that I think flow naturally from the passages that we've read. So please do go through that. But what we saw at the end, the second paragraph of the passage in John 15 is that we're to do this together. There's a sense in which this multiplication is a we thing, and we need to ask, how are we doing? How is the community being impacted by you guys, the church? How is this congregation coming to bear among the thousands who live in this county? Or wherever, maybe you live outside of this county too. There's a corollary pregunta. I live in Latin America, so Spanish. There's a corollary question that is kind of, how is the church being impacted by the community? As we ask, what's happening out there because of this sweet experience of worship in His presence together as a community? What goes out from here? And I've already heard a number of things that were encouraging this morning. But there's also a sense of there's influence coming in from outside. Well, how encouraged do each of you feel by your local church? 1 to 10, pull out a number. Where 10 is, I couldn't be more encouraged. The people are always speaking into my life with hope and asking me to be faithful and encouraging me in my giftedness. And 1 is like, man, I got very little, no desire, got kind of a poor attitude because nobody ever really helps me out. And where are you at in that, of being encouraged? How are we doing? No, don't. But I do want you to think about it. And I wanted you to think about it a little bit because, as you thought about that question, I'm just going to guess, if you're like me, kind of your first thought was, did somebody else come and encourage me? Or how are they doing in encouraging? But you read Hebrews 10:24 and 25, where it says, let us not give up meeting together as some of them have been doing, but let us encourage one another towards love and good deeds, and all the more as you see the day approaching. The commandment is, you're supposed to be thinking, how do I encourage all these people all the time? That's the thought. But I grew up in small town Nebraska. We're kind of, what we do is we're off to everyone does their own thing. We're very independent, kind of isolated. We tend towards that. And we tend to think, if somebody does something for me, well, I'll reciprocate. We're great about that in general in small town Nebraska. But the sense of just being obedient to what the passage says, which consider how to spur one another on towards love and good deeds. We should be considering that. And so it really starts here. If I'll just look at all of your faces and ask the Spirit to give me understanding of who you are, what your gifts are, how multiplication and fruitfulness is probably supposed to be taken in your life, and speak into that in a way that encourages you to love and good deeds, it builds on itself. And we go from this kind of to a sense of really going after it in what God has given each of us. So, and how close are we to fulfilling the Great Commission? And here we isn't we, the local congregation, but we, the church, universal, all Christ followers. How do you think we're doing in that? Like, how much is left to be done? How many people do you think there are in the world that have never heard of Jesus Christ? Just throw out a number or two. What? Too many, for sure. Like, how many millions or other billions or trillions or you know what? It's not trillions. 2 billion? Good. Nailed it. That's it. Tom? Got it. There are 2 billion people, 1.8, that have just never heard. They've got no idea. So we're answering the question, how are we doing as the church? The challenge today is that there's almost 7 billion people on the face of the planet. A third of them here are nominally Christians. We won't go into detail about that. Time doesn't provide today. But a third of the world population indicates that they think Jesus is a good idea. And 2/3 of the world population are unbelieving, and a part of them can hear the message. The Bible's in their language. There's a church somewhere in the community. Maybe not very many, but at least there is one. Those kind of things are going on. They can hear if they want to. And so these people chose to say, by and large, don't think Jesus is a very good idea. But they haven't had a lot of opportunity to hear. But this group is just astounding at 2,000 years from being given the commandment. There's about 2 billion people, a quarter of the world population or so, that never heard. They don't have the Bible in their language. There's not a church within 100 miles. They've just never heard. Now, so as I ask how we're doing, I just want to, this is just more information. But as we look at this information, I want us to be thinking about what's the Father's heart? What did God ask His servants to be about? What's the business we're to be in? What does fruitfulness look like for us as the church? And how does our use of human resources, servants, gospel carriers, how does our use of finances fit in? And I'll try to be quick here. There are around, where's the presence of Christian workers? There are about 430,000 Christian workers in the world. 140,000 of those are Protestant. And so here's the workers in this stewardship of the gospel. You know, when we thought about, what do I have to multiply? What